Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to episode 13 of Tech Sheck. First and foremost, we know it's a very difficult time in Pakistan, and we hope you, your families, and your loved ones are safe and well. God be with you. It's a tough time, but we are human. We'll make it through this. Continue doing what you do well. And thank you very much for patronizing us as Tech Sheck. 13 episodes. We've gone a long ways in the last 3 months. Keep coming back for more. We continue to build on great stories. Today, have a really interesting husband and wife couple. Very bright young man, connected with him very well. I felt like he was a little bit like me when I was younger. But maybe a little better looking. In any case, we have with us Hasib Malik and Iman Jamall of CreditBook. Thank you for coming on, guys. Great to have you here. I loved hearing about your story. I want to share this with the audience today. Please, Iman, first, let's get right into it. What is CreditBook?
Hi, thank you very much. CreditBook essentially is a free digital ledger. It's focused on the business problems of MSMEs and service people. And when I say MSMEs, I really mean micro, small, and medium entrepreneurs in Pakistan. So people who have traditionally been left out of the formal market, don't have access to credit, and are really ambitious and want to grow their businesses, but essentially haven't had the platforms to do so.
That's pretty interesting. Can you give me an example of a customer? Who would be a CreditBook customer?
A CreditBook customer, I'd like to say sort of based on the primary research that we've done and some of the secondary research, essentially would be a person who's based in a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 city. So let's say someone from Sargodha in Punjab and owns a smartphone, an Android, essentially, and runs a small Kiryana shop or a milk shop, and essentially works in these sort of networks, these small enterprising networks, sells to the people within their community, and has a system of udhar going, so essentially credit, where you have monthly repayments happening at an informal and unstructured rate. And essentially what happens is that the cash flow of these businesses are often quite affected in terms of growth, and trust ends up being a very important factor in terms of behaviors within these communities.
Very interesting. So, and now and I think that it's a concept that I've not really thought about. And the fact that there is so much trust and debt involved. So, Hasib, tell me a little more. What was the data? Where did it come from? How did you guys figure this out?
With Iman, came back from the UK about early 2019. I was still back over there running with the big consultancy in the UK. But she had already started some service design work with a couple of banks in Pakistan on unbanked businesses. And so when I came back at about September, she was on this project with these, pawn shops and Kiryana shops across Pakistan, and understanding, what kind of behaviors exist within those shops. And she told me that something very, very interesting. Just by the way, prior to leaving Pakistan, I was part of a neo-digital bank startup of Pakistan, part of that founding team. And so financial inclusion was always very, very close to me. Yeah. So I think coming to that point, if I may, just to answer your question about data, while we're in our product ourselves, we've kind of solved for the pain points. So for example, on the fact that, from a cash flow standpoint and repayments, we start sending auto reminders to these customers of these merchants that are our users.
Right.
We've seen that, in terms of data and behavior, from a benchmark that we had at the primary level in comparison with the same entrepreneurs, we're enabling them to get nearly 2 to 3 times back, their repayments back in a faster manner, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that was one very, very strong validation about what we were doing. And rather than kind of, thinking about something super sexy and super cool in terms of financial inclusion, just giving these guys the empowerment of having more cash in hand to do more business was something that was very, very significant. The other thing is, because everything is digital on our platform and we're doing all the reconciliation and calculation within our app, they don't have, normally what these guys used to do is if a gentleman had his shop open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., he would spend 8 to 9 p.m. every single day doing his reconciliation. Now he can keep his shop open from 8 to 9 doing more business, or he can go back home. And, because of these strong kind of behaviors, the network effects have been so amazing, which just means that our customer acquisition cost is super low right now. And when I talk about OK Credit and CreditBook, in terms of retention, albeit the fact that, in comparison, really, we have a small handful of users. It's June right now as we record this. But in terms of retention, their benchmark's roughly about 20%. Ours in June has exceeded that.
Moving on, and just quickly, what's the revenue model, and have you started generating revenue yet?
It's a really interesting question. At this moment in time, we're not generating any revenue. We've given this, as Iman said, it's a free digital ledger. What we've been able to do right now is essentially what we think our strategy has to be right now is just growing and hitting a critical mass of users. I think within time, the revenue model will become clear as itself. But just because I think something that we learned from India, which was really important, is when you think about the MSME sector, paying them on a utility app, which is what we are right now. And if you want to kind of go through digital Pakistan, would be a mistake at this point. If you need to digitize this sector, you need to take them through an education process, and you need to solve their fundamental needs in this most simplistic manner, which is something that they're very used to. So we're not looking for extreme behavior change of how they do their business. They're still recording it much the same way. But coming back to your question, not a revenue channel at this moment in time, but it's with the purpose and intent of educating this user base, taking them on with the journey with us, and like accelerating their growth and education to then have revenue channels that certainly make sense.
I think a more concise answer to that would be the revenue model will be in the data within the next 12 to 18 months. And I think essentially there are a lot of avenues to explore that we started looking at. So that's sort of like where our validation is starting to come through.
Great answer. And Hasib, and for the audience out there, remember, your wife is always right. So
I don't dispute it at all. Never, ever.
Anyways, off to the last question. And that is, so what's the ask? What do you want from us?
So, Farooq, first of all, thank you for doing this just for the ecosystem in general. I think it's extremely powerful what you're doing in terms of getting Pakistani startups out there. But answering your question again, given you the KPIs that we have right now, which is our customer acquisition cost is super, super, super low. We need to take advantage of the situation and the validation that we're getting. So at this moment in time, we're looking to raise a small portion of capital to accelerate our growth into, let's just say, about 100,000 active users over the next few months.
Okay.
So that's the ask. It's capital for growth.
Excellent. Okay. Well, good. Well, look, guys, a real pleasure for me because it's the first time I've had a husband and wife team. And another very interesting concept, something that's very Pakistan, subcontinent related, the small shopkeeper, how to help digitize them. It's really amazing with all the mobile technology we have now, how ingrained we are in certain ways in country with technology and how we aren't, right? So we're able to use smartphones, but we're still writing numbers in books. So really interesting concept and project. Kudos to both of you for picking up and running with this. As far as our audience is concerned, thank you very much again for coming to see us. We're going to continue building on this. We now have a website running, www.techsheck.net. Please like us and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We want to continue building on this. Seems like the stories in Pakistan are endless and fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us today.